and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The clerk, please call the roll.
Potato,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Cole,
Here.
Newman, Hochstetter. Here. Newman,
She called in. She won't be here.
Reed,
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
All right. Councilmember Newman called in. Do I have a motion to excuse her?
Yes, I move we excuse Councilmember Newman from the meeting this evening. She let us know ahead of time.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Viteto. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? No opposed. All right. Councilmember Newman is excused. So the first thing is exciting on our agenda is a presentation tonight, and I call Public Works Field Supervisor Darren Young and Director Mike Dahlem up to the dais.
Well, thank you for having us today, Mayor and Council. I've always bragged about how the operations staff enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Sumner. But I think after hearing this story, you'll agree that Darren Young went above and beyond. I got to give one little thing before we get started. Down at the operations facility, he's known as the Iceman amongst his coworkers. So what I'm going to do is read a letter from his supervisor, Darren Uphouse. Make sure I get the Darrens right. So he says, it's an honor to write this letter in recognition of exemplary actions on TAPS Highway, December 21st, 2022. He said an appropriate headline would read, Iceman Darren Young, a 25-year Sumner Public Works employee, rescues mother and infant from fiery crash. He goes on, he says, your ability to remain calm and collective is extraordinary. To say the least, after witnessing an approaching vehicle lose control, roll several times, and come to rest on its side. However, your ensuing actions of bringing your snowplow to a safe stop on the icy road, going downhill, extinguishing the fire in the wrecked vehicle, and rendering assistance to remove the young woman and her infant from the wreckage was nothing but heroic. To my knowledge, the two occupants of the vehicle only suffered minor bumps and bruises from the incident, and the catastrophic ending of the story was averted due to your quick thinking and immediate assistance. Your actions serve as inspiration for all of us and deserve special recognition. I sincerely thank you for your efforts and commend you on your actions. It's a privilege to have you as part of the organization. Serious thanks and admiration, Darren Uphouse. You gotta get a speech. Not necessary.
So we have a lifesaver award for you. And here's a copy of the letter from Darren. that he might be-
Thank you very much.
And here's the highly coveted award for you
Okay.
from the mayor. You can open it if you like. Everybody will probably want to see it.
I think I know what it is. I've seen one of
It's
these
the mayor's
before.
thumbs up award.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Next on the agenda is a presentation by Chief Financial Officer Cassandra Raymond. Budget in brief. Brief, right?
Brief. But I can't follow that.
I know.
So, welcome everyone. Before you, council on your dais is a copy of the budget in brief. This is a new endeavor. This is produced by finance as well as the communications department. I want to give props to the document itself, to Carmen Palmer, our communications director. She did an amazing job of bridging accounting speak into public speak. So I want to thank her for that. We're just going to flip through some of these very quickly. Really what the purpose of this document was to bring additional engagement tools to the city. This is to provide budget information and financial information to our community members, our staff members, other shareholders on just where our money comes from and where it goes without having to do a deep dive into a 200+ page budget document. This also provides links for our budget document. So it gives us a path for people that do want to learn more or really get into the details of that budget. What we start with is just identifying those city priorities. These are the city council priorities that were set earlier this year. We take this through introducing our city programs in a more accessible way that provides more context to how we are spending our funding. We look at where the money is coming from. We break it down by year and category, again, to bring that context. We look at look at the split of some of those shared revenues that we share with other parts of our community, as well as put in context for our current economic climate. We also take a look at the funding going out by function. And finally, we take the opportunity to tie where that money is going to right back to those strategic priorities. This is available online. We'll also have it available at city events when we have a booth. And then we've included excerpts in the newsletter that just went out. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think it's really pretty.
It's really cool. This isn't something that's commonly done by cities, but we really were looking for a way to be different in our engagement. We all know the budget can be kind of a slow and plodding process. And we want to really make it clear, where's the money coming from and where's it going and how does that tie back to what council has set as their priorities. And again, Carmen did just an amazing job kind of bridging that accounting speak in those numbers to distill in a way that made sense.
Thank you. Go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you very much to you and Carmen for making this. This is a tad bit different than what's in our packet, isn't it?
Then what's in the packet?
What I have in my written packet that I get.
It may be just because of the formatting.
Okay.
And so it was just trying to take those graphics and lay them in.
Because I do have a question, but I'm not going to ask her right now. I'm going to get with you and have you fill me in just a little bit.
Cool.
Not graphs and things don't always make all that much sense to me. I just need a little help getting it going. So,
I am always happy to talk about the budget.
all right. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you.
Got off easy tonight, didn't you? Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item number 1, resolution number 1647, condemnation of blighted property, 801 Cherry. Item number 2, approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting of January 17, 2023 and January 23rd, 2023 study session.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hochstetter, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move we adopt the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Stewart. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. That's quick. We have no unfinished business tonight, and so we move on to public comment. The public is encouraged to submit their comments to the city clerk by email before tonight's meeting, so the clerk may read those emails received into the record. Were there any public comment? Does any public listening or watching have any comments they would like to make regarding items not on the agenda? Seeing none, I will move on to new business. All right,
We had no one sign up.
That is correct. No one has signed up.
signed up. Thank you. All right, new business, design commissioner. We have Councilmember Reed, would you like to make a motion for our first design commission?
Thank you, Mayor. I move we confirm the mayoral appointment of Luke Heath to the Design Commission for a 4-year term ending in April 2027.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Hochstetter. I call on Scott Waller, planner.
I'm one of the planners here in Development Services. I want to thank you for taking the time to review this confirmation for Luke Heath to Sumner's Design Commission. Sumner's Design Commission is a great resource that provides staff valuable insight on incoming development projects and makes recommendations to our director on a project's ability to meet Sumner's design guidelines and keep in our community's character. Mr. Heath has a background in structural engineering. He has a passion for historic preservation and community character, as well as experience serving on other jurisdictions' boards. Staff feels that Mr. Heath would be a valuable addition to Sumner's Design Commission and filled the last vacant seat, and staff would recommend his approval to the Design Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Would Mr. Heath like to say anything? Come on up.
I'd be very honored to serve on the board. I am 1-year resident, but very much been a resident of the Gallup Sumner region for the last 20 years since I've graduated from college, and I'm very passionate about what I do. We have an office in Seattle, Tacoma, and Portland, and we just moved back into the area after establishing an office in Portland, and really excited about just sharing my passion just to really preserve kind of the integrity and what makes Sumner, the identity of what it is and how the community really attracts a lot of it local and just really good. Sorry, I'm lost for words, but I'm very excited. I've served on other committees before, and like I said, like Scott was saying too, is just the historic preservation is one of those things where we just keep the character of not only our buildings, but some of our heritage, whether it's trees or or just the identity of the community, and upstanding and making sure that our design standards are current with what is kind of the perspective of the community and what we want to continue to have forward. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there discussion among council members? Steve?
I would just like to welcome Mr. Heath and thank you for being a community volunteer. Here in Sumner, they make a lot of difference, and I think you'll enjoy being part of it. So thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none on TV? All right, would there be any public want to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Reed,
Yes.
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Unanimous. Congratulations, Luke Heath.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, moving on to Parks and Forestry Commissioner appointment for Scott Haynes. Councilmember Cole, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the mayoral appointment of Mr. Haynes to serve on the Parks and Forestry Commission for a period of 4 years with a term expiring in April of 2027.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Hochstetter. All right. I call up Community Services Manager Derek Berry.
You didn't leave it on. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here tonight. Here to present Scott Haynes for your consideration to the Forestry and Parks Commission. Forestry and Parks Commission provides advice to the city on issues related to Sumner's parks, recreational facilities, cemetery, trails, trees, and planting strips. Deputy Mayor Hochstetter and I met with Mr. Haynes last month, had good conversation about the city of Sumner's parks, forestry, and trails. And he's been a member of the city for 17 years. He's done a lot of community outreach, not just here, but where he teaches or is a principal, I'm sorry, in Kent School District. So we look forward to having him with us and love to introduce him or answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Derek, too. Almost didn't recognize him without the bigger beard. No, just really excited to get to work and be a part of this. As a principal, the last 10 years at a middle school, that's why I lost all my hair. But I've always been a teacher for 18 years prior to that, really involved as activities coordinator and doing community service projects all over Federal Way, Kent, and Sumner, and helped with the Sumner sweeps for a couple of years, helping Kylie Hill organize that for community. So always been involved. I think it stemmed back from years of joining the Army, being a teacher, just service has always been a calling. So wanted to get involved with the city in some capacity and just work towards making it better. And I've always been an outdoors person. So parks and forestry was something that was available. I was super excited about getting on deck with that and protecting our open spaces and making sure that parks and forestry are a priority for our community and for the city of Sumner. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Look forward to it.
All right. Any council member comments? Okay. Seeing none. Any member of the public would like to speak on this? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Potato,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Unanimous. Congratulations, Scott Haynes. Okay. Now down to resolution number 1646, 2023 refuse and recycle rate increase. Councilmember Boteto, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I make a motion to accept resolution number 1646, the 2023 refuse and recycle rate increase.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Hochstetter. All right, and call on Administrative Service Director Jeff Steffens.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city's contract with the Murray's Disposal allows for an annual refuse and recycle rate increase. This rate increase has two components. The first component is a pass-through of the Pierce County landfill fees, and the second is 80% of the local inflation. Combined, the average residential increase is 8.1%, and the average commercial increase is 8.54%. If approved, these increased rates would go into effect March 1st. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? Mr. Brown?
Yes. It says a monthly increase.
visit the bill every 2 months. Is this month?
Yes, I believe the rates that are in the council's packet are monthly rates, but yes, you are billed every 2 months. So if you doubled that, that would be what would be on your bill. I'm getting some assistance.
All right. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Steffens, is Josh in the audience? I've got a question or two for him.
He is. I would love to have him come up and join me.
Good evening.
Hey, Josh, thank you for being there today and thank you for the service that you do for the community. I've been a resident of Sumner, paying for my garbage to be collected for over 20 years. And I also had an opportunity to work with a lot of citizens that can ill afford things, what they would call luxuries of having their garbage collected. Oftentimes they would not be able to pay their rent, lay off, you name it, and people have had problems. And unfortunately, and we're talking about senior citizens, we're talking about single parent households, just a lot of different circumstances where their monthly income, even annual income, doesn't increase much at all, if ever. In fact, some get pay cuts. And so I'm totally supportive of the contract, and I understand that there is an adjustment clause in there that allows you to adjust your fees. But can you, just one thing really hurts my heart is when people come to me, and this was not in the capacity of a city council member, but in a community leadership position where I would help to pay bills for people who couldn't afford it. When they can't afford things, they can't afford their rent, they can't afford groceries, they end up having to move out of Sumner because they can't afford to live here. And that's what really hurts. We lose a lot of good people. And so I'm curious if your company has any programs established to help low-income citizens, people who are just out of work, for any number of reasons. First of all, can you answer that question? Do you have any programs established to help your customers who have trouble paying their bills?
Yeah, I'll start with that question, and great question. And I really appreciate your heart for those that are struggling. I share the same sentiments, and I think to answer your question directly, we don't have a program. We're always open to those things. It ultimately comes down to what currently exists in the contract. Certainly, I've seen in other jurisdictions that I've worked in over the course of my career where cities have said, "Hey, could we look at something like that?" You all may have such programs in your utilities. I'm not sure. I would caution, one of the most difficult things to administer when it comes to those things. We're certainly supportive of it, but always want to be cautious of the administration of those things. Is when I've seen this type of program exist in other jurisdictions, it's the burden of proof, I suppose. Some cities I've seen have that burden of proof exist at the city level, where citizens could apply on an annual basis for a low income rate, and ultimately provide that information to the company, and we would administer at that point at the direction of the city. While it doesn't currently exist in our agreement with the city of Sumner, as I hope you've come to find, at least in my time working at Murray's, we're always open to taking a look at what makes sense.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. So I understand the whole contract situation where if the city and Murray's discuss this and reach some sort of an agreement, an amendment to the contract can be made. I understand from staff that the next process for reviewing the contract and doing a request for proposal for competition won't happen until 2032. So that's a long time. And if the rates go up on par with what they're doing this year and in the past, those numbers are going to keep climbing. So I'm really disappointed that there wasn't something put in the contract at the beginning. And I blame myself for that. Probably was on the council or had access to provide input. Just looking at my bills, now Murray's, and it used to be DM Disposal. I don't know if that's a different company or if you were bought out by them or you bought them out. But oh gosh, in 2008, end of 2008, my bill was $40 every 2 months. And this last month was $87 for 2 months. And so I'm going to suggest that, I'll talk to staff about this, but I'm going to suggest that we consider putting some sort of an amendment in the contract that would enable either the vendor or community support to step in and help some of the people who can't afford to have their garbage picked up. One other question, Josh, it just came to me. Is there a rule that citizens who live in Sumner have to have their garbage collected?
I do believe that it exists in the Sumner Municipal Code that there is a minimum level of service requirement, both for residents as well as commercial businesses.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Anybody else? Anybody from the public want to speak on this? All right. Seeing none. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
Reed,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Passes 5-1. Thank you. All right, moving on to ordinance number 2846, compost procurement policy. Councilmember Newman, would you like to make a notion? She is not here, so how about?
I'm not Newman, but I'll do it.
Thank you.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2846, creating chapter 3.56, compost procurement substantially in the form as approved by the city attorney.
Do we have a second?
Come on.
Second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Botetto. All right, and I call on City Administrator Jason Wilson.
Good evening, Council. Jason Wilson, your city administrator. Give me just a moment to get our presentation up here. Okay, before you tonight is an ordinance to adopt a compost procurement policy. Last year, the state legislature passed House Bill 1799, which established several laws, but with the whole goal and intent of diverting organic material from our landfills. One of the first steps in this process, as you can see on screen right now, there's a number of steps outlined in the bill between now and 2030. But one of the first steps was for cities over 20,000 population or cities that have organic collection, in this case, yard waste, has to adopt a compost procurement ordinance. So what a compost procurement ordinance does is it requires each municipality that meets that definition to plan for the use of compost on a lot of their projects. And these projects include landscaping projects, construction and post-construction soil amendments, and then also to use compost to prevent erosion, filter stormwater runoff, promote vegetation growth, and also in low impact development and green infrastructure to help filter water, keep water safe and keep pollutants out of the water. Said that like three ways there. So it also requires cities to include this in their project planning. So if compost products can be utilized, we must use those compost products. Unless the compost products are not reasonably available, they don't comply with existing purchasing standards, or the compost does not comply with federal or state health, quality, and safety standards, and that the compost needs to be, the purchase price of the compost has to be reasonably competitive. What does that mean? It means that it has to be within 10% or less of non-compost material for the same purpose. State law will also require us to do annual, or reporting to the Department of Ecology every 2 years, so an even numbered years starting in 2024. There's a few things that we have to report. First is the total tons of organic material diverted throughout the year, and that's something that our contract with Murray's is going to help us record and report on. And then we have to record the volume and cost of compost purchased throughout the year, including the source of that compost. We are very fortunate. We have a large compost producer in our area. Corliss Resources produces quite a bit of compost, so we all know that they are in our backyard and easy to use for it. I want to back up one piece here. While this is our first step, there's going to be ongoing steps that our businesses are going to be taking throughout the years to divert more of their organic material to the landfill. And there's different steps at the very beginning, this first slide that goes through all these different action points. You can see if you read those, that as the years go on, businesses, depending on how much organic materials that they collect, are going to be more impacted. While that's not part of this ordinance before you tonight, I just wanted to point that out because that's something that our council is going to have to be considering as we go into the coming years when we talk about enclosures for our downtown businesses and other restaurants, that not just having a normal recycle and a garbage, they're also going to need to start storing organic materials for diversion. So our next steps, we're asking for your approval on this tonight. This is mandated by state law, so there's not a lot that we can change in this. And then we are working internally to develop policies to make sure that we are tracking the required metrics for the reporting. And then, like I mentioned just a minute ago, this is something that we're going to be dealing with in the coming years to make sure that any impacts from this waste stream diversion are also realized and planned for. Josh with Murray's has also done a lot of work on this. So if you have a question that I can't answer, I know that he's going to be happy to help me answer those. Any questions?
We do.
Yes, I would like Josh to step up. Could you just explain a little bit from your company's point of view how you're going to get the customers to handle this appropriately?
Lots of education, quite frankly, partnering with the city as well, as Jason mentioned. This is mandated by the state. So not only mandated by the state for the cities to adopt certain ordinances, it's also mandated for businesses. It's mandated for the collection companies to provide these services. Now, how this will be enforced, TBD, right? I think that's one of the questions as things go along. Certainly, the easy enforcement from the state will be requiring that we provide the service. I don't know. Certainly there are neighbors to the north that have effectively garbage police, for lack of a better way to put it, that are staffed to go around and check to make sure that people are doing the right thing. I think that's a little silly, but
Are you providing the appropriate containers right off the bat?
yeah, so that's why the timeline that was up on the screen is awfully handy. It gives us some goals to be working towards and shooting for. We're sort of working small to big, I guess, at this point, in working with the county. First and foremost, if you look at one of the pieces on in the later years of the timeline, residents are to be provided the opportunity to put compostables, to have compostables collected. Now, we have a version of that at this point. We have grass and yard clippings. But what this will ultimately look like is anything that you can eat at some point will be able to be put into those containers. The county's currently working to take a look at the existing compost facilities and understand the capacity to accept the additional material in the existing stream.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Josh and Jason. I know you both mentioned it, but I think it's important to reiterate that this is not a city-born initiative. This is a state mandate that was passed by the legislature, but the city is now required to pass the way that it's going to implement what's being handed down. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Jason, along those same lines, when you presented this to the study session a while ago, you mentioned the fact that it's an unfunded mandate, and I'm wondering if you have done any kind of study about how much financial impact this will be on the city.
Well, we have not done a study, but I can tell you every single public works project we bid is going to have to be bid differently than it's historically. And then an analysis has to be done with each project. And then I think what is probably more time consuming is actually every single project that our field crews work on. They're going to have to be mindful of what type of material they're using and doing a cost analysis, maybe even real time in the field of what kind of fill do I get for this project that I'm doing, even like a tree planting, for example. And then they're going to have to track that invoice separately. And then we're going to have to assign an employee that's going to have to kind of quarterly audit that to make sure we stay on top of it so we can do this reporting every 2 years. So it's definitely not insignificant, but it's definitely less than an FTE, but it's going to be spread across a lot of different people every single day.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes, just a quick question, not necessarily about the policy, but for compost, well, you can put food items into the yard waste bin. Is it okay to put those in a compostable bag?
As long as it's an approved compostable bag, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Anybody else? Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Hochstetter.
Yes.
Unanimous. Okay, now we are on to council reports. Would you like to go first on your council report? So these poor guys can.
I know. No, well, I just wanted to thank Murray's and DM Disposal for the bikes that they provide. They give 20 bikes to the community for the toy box, and Sumner Rotary helps offset some of those costs, but they've done this project for probably 5 or 6, I don't know, could be longer, but at least 5 years, and it really makes a difference for families. So wanted to say thank you for that, and then wanted to welcome the 2 commissioners. And I was on the Arts Commission with Cindy many years ago, and it is a great way to learn more about the city and then also be involved in the community. And last on the 1st, the working families tax credit applications are able to be filled out. And if anybody needs help, you can get help with sound outreach that's at the Sumner Bonnie Lake family center over at the middle school. So there's free money for, people with low income.
Thank
So,
you. Councilmember Brown, do you have anything?
Yeah. Thank you very much to the volunteers.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole.
Yes, I'd like to give a recap of the Rainier Communications Commission meeting that happened on Wednesday, January 18th. There are, I guess, 4 items, well, 3, with little subsets, but anyway, here goes. There was old business was regarding the interlocal agreement rewrite. There will be a monthly meeting to work on the rewrite, and the goal is to complete a draft by June. The priorities for this rewrite are 1, the ability of the RCC to contract with the non-RCC agencies. 2, to clean up the language so that it's just easier to understand. And 3, to address the process for responding to public records requests. There was the new business. There were 4 items. 1 had to do with training opportunities for the RCC. So I won't go into that one, but there, another one was the Pierce County Council member Janie Hitchen was elected as RCC Vice President. Also, there will be a new rep coming from the city of Fife. The outgoing rep moved outside of the city. And lastly, there was an overview of the 2023 RCC work plan. So anyone that wants any specific details can reach out to me and I will share them. But there was one noteworthy item, and that was PCTV is moving to channel 322, and which means that they'll have reach a bigger audience, but they won't know the move date until sometime next month. That is in March. And then there was a PCTV update, which really focused on the production funds, how they're calculated, and who determines how the funds are used. And lastly, just the next meeting will be March 15th. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Cole, and thank you for your always giving reports on your committees. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of things. I also want to thank our newest committee members for stepping up and volunteering. You'll find that that is a very worthwhile thing to do, and you're really helping the community as you perform those duties. And secondly, I was almost sick to my stomach when I was reading the materials attached to the packet about the condemnation, and I want to thank the police department and the legal department for being so thorough in taking care of that property. I have ridden my bike by there and driven by it since it first came to our attention, and way to go. It's really something that will help the city look better in that area. I really thank you so much for that, doing that work. Thank you.
Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to say thanks to the new commission members, and they're putting themselves out there and stepping forward to serve the city. Thank you.
All right, and Deputy Mayor Hochstetter.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Jason Wilson.
All right, coming up at next week's study session, we kind of have a unique opportunity. We're going to have a joint study session with the Pierce County Library Board with the purpose of discussing the new library that is hopefully going to be going in soon in the east side of Sumner. We're going to really focus in on what it means to create a library capital facilities area, or an LCFA for short. Once again, that is a voted bond measure that our council will need to decide whether we support that or not. And it requires our council's support to move forward to the ballot. So that should be an interesting meeting next week. They're also going to talk about modern library design and really share everything that they're working on. February 21st, which is a Tuesday, our next regular council meeting. We have a contract approval for the Parks Plan update. an agreement with PSC regarding the Stewart Road Bridge construction. And then we get to accept a lot of grants. This is really exciting. We have a TIB grant acceptance for the Stewart Road Bridge replacement, another TIB grant acceptance for the Elm Street sidewalks, a Pierce County LTAC grant for the Ryan House rehabilitation, and a floodplains by design grant acceptance for the White River Restoration Project. A lot of grants. Our staff's been hard at work on writing all those grants, and so lucky that we've been so successful. You also have a resolution setting the public hearing for the 24th Street East partial right-of-way vacation. And then you'll hold a public hearing for the surplus of real property south of 24th Street. And then finally, you'll consider an ordinance amending the medium density residential parking in the East Sumner neighborhood. Commission updates. The Planning Commission continues to work through the Housing Action Plan priorities. Recently, they reviewed code amendments related to short subdivisions and pipe stem lots. After a public hearing, they recommended adoption to council the code changes related to short subdivisions, raising the threshold from 4 lots to 9 lots. And they are still considering the proposed pipe stem lot code amendments. In March, we'll be before you at a study session to go through all of those changes before you consider them in April. And then the Cultural Arts Commission, they're currently accepting proposals for musicians for our Music Off Main concert series. Those proposals are due February 20th. Also, they currently have 4 openings on the commission. If anybody's interested in serving on that commission or submitting a proposal for an artist for the concert series, more information can be found on our website. And then I'm going to end tonight talking about some personnel issues. You know, beginning of the year, I'm pleased that 4 of our employees have announced their retirement, and they've all either retired in the last 2 weeks or they're retiring in the next 2 weeks. So 4 employees with a lot of years of service are departing the city. The first one is engineering technician Monty Brandt. He's been with the city for 15 years. Next is one of our parks employees, Tom Bachman, for 22 years. Animal control officer Deborah Perry, 22 years as well. And then Detective Troy Nicolau, 28 years. So I want to thank all of them for their many years of service to the Sumner community. Several of them also worked in either state or federal government before joining us here in Sumner. So a lot of people leaving, and I wish them their best in retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I also want to thank our commissioners for volunteering, and I started 15 years ago on a commission, so see what can happen. Watch out. The Wine Walk this Saturday is being hosted by Sumner Main Street Association. You can buy tickets online, and hope everybody has a safe, great event. Sumner Alert. Be sure to sign up for Sumner Alert. Get texts or emails during emergencies. It's the easiest and fastest way, and you sign up by going to www.sumnerwa.gov. Last but not least is the Portland Loo. Our city crews have started working on new restrooms at Loyalty Park, and they're amazing. They're safer, they're cleaner. They're not ready yet, but the first flush is coming. Meeting adjourned.
Mayor, could you please say the time?
At 6:00.